Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Michael, you're watching IDB, and the iPhone 14 Pro is apparently experiencing some battery drain problems. It seems like every single year when a new iPhone comes out, there's always a big new problem with the iPhone that makes headlines every single year. And apparently this time around, it is the battery drain problem on the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max. So in this video, I'm gonna dive a bit deeper into this problem and talk about why it's happening and some potential fixes to this problem. Let's go ahead and dive in right now. So to get things started, there are a few things hardware-wise on the new 14 Pro that could be affecting battery life. The first one is the new always-on display. So now on the 14 Pro, whenever you lock your iPhone, you can see the display is always going to stay on. It's going to show the time, your widgets, and even a dimmed version of your wallpaper. Now, no matter what Apple says for mitigations they have in place to stop power draw, this is going to kill your battery when your display is always turned on. So even though it puts it into an ultra dim state and it even brings the display panel down to 1 Hertz, it is always going to be consuming power from the battery when your display panel is turned on. I think part of this issue comes from the fact that Apple wants to show your wallpaper. So if you have an image of something, all of these pixels on your display are going to be turned on. In my opinion, I think the power draw could be a bit less if you are just showing the time and the widgets, as I don't really need to see my wallpaper on the always-on display. So another factor that could be affecting battery drain is the new peak brightness levels of this new display. So Apple states that it can get up to 2 times brighter in direct sunlight, which is really nice. I am able to see it a lot more when I'm in sunlight, but it does mean that when you're outside and the display is pumping out all of those 2000 nits, it is going to eat into your battery a significant amount. I also noticed another thing. When I'm inside my house in a dimly lit situation, my iPhone's auto brightness setting seems really aggressive. So when it's dark outside and I don't really need my display to be that bright, I'm noticing the auto brightness setting is still choosing a pretty high level of brightness. So that can also be eating into your battery as well. I think a future software update could fix this, but as for right now, iOS 16 on the 14 Pro has really aggressive auto brightness. So another thing that we should keep in mind with this year's iPhones is the physical size of the battery. So from the 13 Pro to the 14 Pro, the battery increased by, I believe, 1 or 2%. So at that point, it's pretty much negligible. It has the exact same battery as last year's iPhone. However, on the 14 Pro Max, the battery cell has actually decreased in size. So it's actually starting to make sense now with Apple adding the always-on display and the higher peak levels of brightness. With the batteries staying the same or even getting a little bit smaller, it's starting to make a lot more sense as to why the battery life on these phones is not as good as last year. So all of this information is good to know, but how can you actually act on it? So if you're experiencing bad battery on your 14 Pro, the first thing I'd recommend doing is turn off the always-on display. So inside display and brightness settings, scroll down and turn off always on right here. I really do think a lot of the power draw from the always-on display is coming from the fact that Apple chooses to show a dimmed version of your wallpaper, which, as I said earlier in the video, is kind of useless to me. So I think they could really benefit from adding a few preferences for the always-on display, such as giving us the option to only have the time and the widgets, and the rest of the screen can simply be black. Until Apple adds that option, however, the always-on display is going to be a huge power draw, so I'd recommend turning it off. So another very small thing that you can do in terms of that aggressive auto brightness I talked about earlier in the video is always make sure that your display brightness is at a lower setting. So this seems kind of obvious, but I find myself in Control Center all the time dialing my brightness down just because the 14 Pro has such aggressive auto brightness. So I'd recommend constantly checking Control Center and dial down your brightness just a bit. So a few other little things you can do to extend your battery include turning on low power mode. So you can find low power mode inside of battery settings. It's also inside of Control Center as well. But if you turn this on, your iPhone is going to limit some of the background activities. And when it is turned on, you're going to notice that the battery icon is yellow. So having it in low power mode should help extend your battery a bit. And also another thing, this one comes directly from Apple. Apparently the new feature in iOS 16 that lets you have haptic feedback on the keyboard can drain your battery. Now it's kind of funny because in every other video I've made about iOS 16. I have raved about how awesome of a feature this is, but this is directly from Apple. If you have this feature turned on, constant use of the Taptic engine inside the iPhone can kill your battery faster. So another way that you can extend your battery, this is actually for all modern iPhones that have an OLED display, is to turn on dark mode. And the reason this extends your battery is because on OLED displays, when they're displaying a black image, the pixels themselves are not even turned on. So the less pixels you have turned on your display means the less power is being drawn from the battery. So if you want to get a little bit more usage throughout your day, turn on dark mode, and this does work for all modern iPhones with an OLED display. It's not just for the iPhone 14. And for even more battery tips, we did make a complete separate video on this channel as well for all iPhones. So if you missed that video and want to check it out, it'll be linked right here. So one final thing that I should mention in terms of software, the iPhone 14 Pro is currently on iOS 16.0.1 at the time of making this video. However, Apple has actually confirmed that they are working on another version of iOS that's going to come out sometime next week. That's presumably going to be iOS 16.0.2. Apple has actually confirmed that this software update is going to be fixing a bunch of issues with the iPhone 14 Pro. So hopefully that software update also fixes the battery drain problems. So I actually have an update for you. Right as I was editing and uploading the video, Apple actually went ahead and released iOS 16.0.2. So based on the release notes here, you can see it mainly looks like it's for bug fixes, and hopefully this update fixes the battery drain issue as well. So let me know in the comments. So that's going to do it for me in this video. Now what I want you guys to do is head down to the comments and tell me if you're going to turn off your always on display or if you're just going to leave it on. I also want to know if you're experiencing that really weird aggressive auto brightness bug, so make sure to tell me down below. I love to hear what you guys have to say. Anyways, that's going to do it for me in this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support recently. My name is Michael with IDB, and I'll see you next time.